And in the past 18 months, this whole industry, exactly your example with Facebook, called retargeting, where a company will put an ad and follow you around the internet. That's been the thing that has really resonated with consumers. So I imagine if you're like most people, about 60% of people in the room have noticed ads following them around the internet now. And that has started to wake consumers up to this tracking. At the same point, businesses have realized that this data is valuable, like you said, and your companies are probably hiring data scientists. That's the New York Times, so that's the career of the next decade. And so the people like the FTC, what they have to deal with is how to reconcile the data collection with what consumers want. And traditionally, people have said, okay, well, privacy, no one really cares about it because people weren't willing to do anything about it. And what our firm has done is we've taken a stance that no one else has been willing to take, which is we're not going to collect any personal information by default. We literally don't track our users. And what we found is that it's not that privacy is really dead or consumers don't care, it's that they've never had a choice. And if you don't have a choice for an alternative Facebook, you're not going to take it.
Of use varies amongst industry segments. You alluded to the healthcare industry before, but the healthcare industry might use data analytics to avoid medical errors or redundant testing. They may want to foster, it may help foster communications between doctors and also, enhance the patient experience and stay connected with the patients. The education community might use data analytics to enhance student learning or predict student success. Banks and financial institutions and credit card companies might want to use data to analyze withdrawal patterns in order to avoid fraud. Retailers and manufacturers might use data to help manage their own inventory, and an e-commerce company may want to use data to analyze their website patterns traffic patterns in order to kind of enhance the customer experience. So I think initially the intent could be a little more innocent in nature.
I think there is some of that going on, though. From what I've read, I think some companies are taking the posture of, hey, let's just collect as much data as we can because we don't even know yet what we're going to be able to use this data for in the future. And they recognize the importance of big data, but they haven't connected all the dots yet.
Right. Yeah, I think that's the dead on point. I think why we want to combine these two, because so many of us, and we hear from our senior executives and everything about, hey, we want to become more involved in data analytics. We want to take advantage of this opportunity. We won't talk about cloud either, but let's take advantage of these computing capabilities. Let's make sure that we're going to be competing with other businesses. We want to be on the forefront. So the natural reaction is as well, okay, well, what are we supposed to do, right? So you start collecting the data and we'll figure it out later, right? But let's just start pulling that information in. And the problem is I don't know that those privacy policies have been updated. I don't know that, there's a lot of issues that are potentially popping up. So, yeah, go ahead.
Also assuming that everybody knows what data they have in their company, and that's one of the issues that we're finding, is that there is no one person who really understands everything that's being collected in an entire company. And so when you even want to disclose what you're doing, one of the first steps has to be to figure out what exactly you have, who you're sharing it with.
Right.
Or what you're doing with it, and that can itself be a big process.
There's three main things that companies should think about when it comes to handling consumers' private information. The first thing we talk about in the report is privacy by design, and that's the idea that companies should bake in privacy kind of from the outset. So from the time the first kernel of an idea about a product is started at the company, that everybody should be thinking about, what are the repercussions of the data that we're collecting and that we're sharing as part of this product or service. And that includes things like robust data security. It includes things like data minimization, so only collecting the data that you need to collect for that product or service. And also good data retention and data disposal practices. The second main tenet that we talk about in the report is simplified consumer choice. So we advocate kind of clear, contextual notice and choice options for consumers. Gabe talked about this a little bit. I think that we don't want to put the onus always on consumers to kind of know what's going on, but there needs to be some sort of choice mechanism when it comes to not only goods and services, but also alternatives to sharing data within that company, within that good or service itself. And then the third main area that we talk about in the report is transparency, and so companies should make their practices regarding information collection and sharing transparent to consumers.
But I think, to the points everyone has made, it's important to try to bring some objectivity to the process, beyond the concept of privacy by design, but to embrace the idea that outside auditors and service providers are part of that relationship and can help with it. So the concept of data security assessments, the old SAS 70s, SSAEs, the SOC 2s, I mean, it's helpful to apply that in the privacy context as well, to really stress that you need to understand the exchange of information between yourself and a third party, and also the input of information to your organization. So to build that into your program, but then to audit it to make sure that it's actually working effectively, that there's not something coming in that wasn't planned for. And I think it's important to practice the steps you'll take throughout that process, both as you're developing new products and services, but also in determining whether or not the program that you've designed is effective.